The Prime Minister's opened his APEC talks, meeting the Indonesian president, the new president. There was plenty to discuss, including the incoming Trump administration and what it could mean for our region. I spoke to our political editor, Andrew Clennell, who is in Lima, and began by asking him what was the big takeout from the PM's meeting with President Subianto of Indonesia.
Well, it's always an extremely important strategic meeting with Indonesia, isn't it, Kieran? So that's the first meeting of APEC, you know, our nearest neighbour, and talks about China, but obviously also about the incoming Trump administration. We'll see that with every meeting that the Prime Minister has in APEC and G20 here. But Prabowo Subianto, he's had a big week. Apart from meeting Anthony Albanese, he's met Joe Biden, he's had a phone call with Donald Trump, and he met President Xi as well. And that was controversial back home because they signed some sort of maritime arrangement. They had to put out a statement later saying, hey, look, we're still concerned about the incursions in the South China Sea. So at the bilateral today, with the opening remarks that were in front of press, the Indonesian president made sure that he mentioned that they were going to be talking about de-escalating tensions with China.
Thank you so much. We had a good discussion. He'd had a phone conversation with President Trump, as I did last week. So we discussed that and what it might mean for the world. Obviously, that's part of the backdrop of APEC and the G20 is what the impact of a change in US administration will have.
Andrew, so the Kevin Rudd issue, and Dan Scavino confirmed as the next Deputy Chief of Staff in the White House, his tweet that suggested Kevin Rudd's time was up. What's the latest on that from the Prime Minister?
Well, what about that, Kieran? I mean, what a mess, really. I mean, how does he survive, you ask yourself, but then how does he get dumped either? Because it looks like we're ceding power over ambassadors to Donald Trump. You sort of think, well, maybe does he quietly resign in a few months, or do they try to ride this thing out? But the tweet speaks for itself, and now especially since he's been confirmed as Deputy Chief of Staff. So on background, on the record, the version is, look, Kevin Rudd's here to stay. He's made good moves in terms of getting on with the Trump administration and Republicans. We can stick with him. Dan Scavino obviously giving a hint otherwise, an extraordinary situation. The Prime Minister was sticking solid with his former Prime Minister this morning. He really flat-batted this. I mean, he doesn't want to talk about it, obviously, but he was actually quoting Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull as a reason Kevin Rudd should stay on.
Ambassador Rudd's doing a good job, and that's been recognised across the political spectrum in Australia by people from Tony Abbott to Malcolm Turnbull to Peter Dutton and obviously to the Australian government.